While my family celebrates finally getting rid of their financially irresponsible daughter, who wasted money on a $900 house instead of funding my sister's dream vacation to Bali, I'm sitting in my new home office reviewing the property development contracts that will make this abandoned neighborhood the most valuable real estate in Millbrook within 2 years. As they toast to Natasha's upcoming Instagram worthy trip with the money they pressured our grandmother to redirect from my foolish investment, they have no idea I've been the anonymous consultant behind the city's largest urban renewal project for the past 18 months. The family that cast me out for choosing a derelict house over their golden child's luxury is about to learn the most expensive lesson about underestimating the daughter they never bothered to truly know. Let us know in the comments where you're watching. If this resonated, don't miss out on subscribing because tomorrow I'm sharing something that will completely change how you think about this topic. My phone buzzes against the dusty windowsill of what my mother called that disgusting shack you threw your future away for. The notification shows another Planning Commission approval for Phase 2 of the Riverside District Renewal Project. Through my cracked front window, I can see the survey markers placed just last week, each one bringing me closer to the moment when my family realizes their failure of a daughter just made the smartest investment of her life. The house itself tells the story they refuse to hear. Built in 1923, this arts and crafts beauty sits on double lot in what used to be Millbrook's most prestigious neighborhood, before the highway diverted traffic and businesses moved to the Mall District. The bones are solid, hardwood floors beneath decades of neglect, original crown molding hidden under layers of paint, and a foundation that could support a second-story addition. But when I tried explaining the architectural potential to my family 6 months ago, my father cut me off with his usual dismissive wave. "Rebecca, sweetheart, you're an art teacher, not a real estate investment. Leave the money decisions to people who understand these things." What my father doesn't know is that I haven't just been an art teacher for the past 3 years. The consulting fees from Meridian Development Group have been quietly building in my separate account, payment for my expertise in historical neighborhood analysis and community development planning. The art education background he dismisses gave me a unique eye for recognizing architectural value and understanding how cultural districts develop. The urban planning certification I earned through weekend classes at Northern State University never came up in family conversations because they never asked about my professional development. My sister Natasha's voice still echoes in my memory from that horrible family dinner 3 months ago. "Seriously, Becca, you could have just given me the $900 for my Bali trip deposit. That house is literally falling apart and you want to live there? It's embarrassing having to tell my friends my sister bought a crack house." The crack house comment stung because it showed how little she understood about housing markets, neighborhood development, or even basic research. If she'd bothered looking up property records, she'd discovered this house sits directly in the path of the planned light rail extension. If she'd attended a single city council meeting, she'd know about the Arts District designation bringing tax incentives and development grants. If she'd spent 5 minutes on the Planning Commission website, she'd understand why investors are quietly buying up every available property within a 6-block radius. But Natasha has never needed to research anything. As the family's designated success story, with her marketing degree and social media following, she's always had financial backing for every venture, every trip, every designer purchase that maintains her Instagram aesthetic. When she needed $15,000 for the photography equipment that launched her influencer career, the family rallied. When she wanted to attend that exclusive digital marketing boot camp in Los Angeles, they covered the tuition and living expenses without question. When I needed $900 to secure the property that would change my entire financial future, they called it wasteful and demanded I redirect the money to fund Natasha's luxury vacation instead. My grandmother's living room became a battlefield that February evening. 3 generations of Castellano women gathered to discuss Rebecca's poor financial choices, though it felt more like an intervention stage for someone with a gambling addiction. "Think about what that money could do for Natasha's career," my mother pleaded, her voice taking on that manipulative tone reserved for when she wanted to appear reasonable while demanding compliance. Her Bali content could attract major brand partnerships. It's an investment in her future. And this house isn't an investment in mine? I asked, pulling up comparable sales data on my laptop. Look at these property values from similar neighborhoods that underwent revitalization. The average appreciation is 300% over 5 years. My father dismissed my research with a wave of his hand. Those internet articles don't mean anything, Becca. Real estate is about location, 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 and you picked the worst location in the city. The worst location in the city that happens to be 3 blocks from the planned Riverside Cultural District, 2 blocks from the approved community college expansion, and 5 blocks from the new medical center complex breaking ground next month. But they weren't interested in facts that didn't support their predetermined conclusion.
Grandmother had been quiet through most of the argument, which was unusual for the woman who typically dominated family discussions with her strong opinions and sharper tongue. When she finally spoke, her words carried the weight of her 86 years and her role as the family's financial matriarch. "Rebecca, dear, I've been thinking about your request for the loan, and I believe your sister's opportunity might be more practical. Travel broadens the mind, and Natasha has such potential to build something meaningful with her online presence." The betrayal hit deeper than I expected. Grandmother had always been my ally, the one family member who valued education and long-term thinking over immediate gratification. She'd encouraged my historical research projects, celebrated my teaching achievements, and supported my continuing education efforts. But in that moment, she chose Natasha's instant gratification over my carefully planned investment. "I understand," I'd said quietly, closing my laptop and gathering my property analysis reports. "I'll find another way to finance the purchase." What I didn't tell them was that I'd already secured alternative financing through my consulting work. The loan from the family would have been convenient, but it wasn't necessary. What hurt was their collective assumption that I was incapable of making intelligent financial decisions, their dismissal of my research and expertise, their automatic preference for funding luxury over investment. The real breaking point came 2 weeks later when I completed the house purchase using my own resources. Instead of curiosity about how I'd managed the financing or pride that I'd found a solution, they responded with anger and accusations. "You're being deliberately stubborn," Natasha accused during what became our final family gathering. "You bought that dump just to spite me, to make sure I couldn't go to Bali. It's selfish and petty, and honestly, I'm embarrassed to be related to someone who makes such stupid choices." My mother nodded in agreement, her expression cold with disappointment. "We tried to help you make a sensible decision, Rebecca. If you're going to ignore family advice and waste money on that disaster of a property, then perhaps you need to learn some lessons about consequences." The consequences came swiftly. My invitation to Easter dinner was revoked. My spot in the family vacation rental for our annual lake weekend disappeared. When I called to discuss grandmother's upcoming birthday celebration, my mother informed me that given my attitude problem and financial irresponsibility, it might be better if I didn't attend family gatherings until I could demonstrate more maturity. The exile stung, but it also freed me from pretending their opinions mattered. While they celebrated their victory over my stubbornness and prepared for Natasha's Bali adventure with the redirected funds, I moved into my crack house and began the most transformative period of my life. The house revealed its secrets slowly. Under layers of carpet, original hardwood floors emerged with gentle refinishing. Behind cracked plaster, original architectural details waited for careful restoration. In the basement, I discovered the foundation for what had once been an artist studio, with complete north-facing windows and original built-in storage for canvases and supplies. Each evening after teaching, I worked on one small section, learning skills from YouTube tutorials and advice from the older neighbors who remembered when this was the neighborhood where Millbrook's artists, writers, and musicians lived. They shared stories about the galleries that once lined Riverside Avenue, the coffee shops where poets gathered, the studios where local artists created works that now hang in regional museums. More importantly, they shared information about the quiet changes happening in city planning meetings, the developers asking questions about zoning variances, the infrastructure improvements scheduled for the next fiscal year. These weren't the kind of details covered in real estate blogs or family dinner conversations, but they painted a picture of inevitable transformation. My consulting work with Meridian Development Group intensified as the Riverside District project moved from concept to implementation. The monthly payments increased substantially when they needed someone with both historical knowledge and educational background to help design the cultural programming for the new arts district. The woman they'd contracted remotely had no idea she was the same daughter teacher they'd dismissed for buying a house in the wrong neighborhood. Tonight, as I sit in my restored home office with original built-in bookcases and refinished oak floors, my phone shows 17 missed calls from various family members. The Planning Commission meeting ended an hour ago with the final approval for Phase 2 development, and the local news just announced the project details that will make tomorrow morning very interesting for the Castellano family. They still think I'm the financially irresponsible daughter who wasted $900 on a worthless property while refusing to support her sister's dreams. They have no idea their failure of a family member just became the owner of the most strategically located property in Millbrook's next luxury district. By tomorrow morning, they'll learn exactly how much their underestimation cost them and how little they actually knew about the daughter they cast aside. If you're loving what you're hearing, smash that subscribe button. It really keeps us going. All right, let's jump back in. The morning after the Planning Commission meeting, I wake up in my restored bedroom to the sound of construction vehicles rumbling down Riverside Avenue. Through the original leaded glass windows that I spent weeks carefully restoring, I can see the survey crew setting up equipment 3 blocks away, marking the exact boundaries for the new cultural district that will transform this neighborhood into Millbrook's most desirable address.
My phone shows 43 missed calls and 67 text messages from family members who apparently caught the late-night news broadcast about the Riverside District Development Project. The local channel ran a feature story about the forgotten neighborhood poised for dramatic transformation with aerial footage that clearly shows my little house sitting right in the heart of the planned renovation zone. I pour my morning coffee from the vintage percolator I found at an estate sale and settle into my home office to review the messages. The progression tells a story of dawning realization and growing panic. Natasha's messages start confident. OMG, Becca, did you see the news about your neighborhood? Maybe your weird house investment wasn't totally stupid after all, LOL. Still think you should have helped with my Bali trip, though. But as the morning progresses and she clearly does more research, the tone shifts. Wait, how did you know about this development project? The news said it's been in planning for 2 years. Did you actually research this stuff? By noon, the messages become more frantic. Rebecca, call me back. Mom is freaking out. Dad wants to know exactly when you bought that house and how you knew about the development plans. Were you hiding information from us? My mother's messages follow a similar arc, beginning with reluctant acknowledgement. Rebecca, I saw the news story about your neighborhood. Perhaps your house purchase wasn't as impractical as we thought. We should talk. Then escalating to confusion. Your father found the news article online. It mentions property values potentially tripling over 5 years. How did you research this so thoroughly when none of us knew about these development plans? Finally, reaching accusation. Rebecca, we need to discuss this immediately. If you knew about this development project when you bought the house, why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us think you were making a poor financial decision? But my grandmother's single message reveals how deep their betrayal actually runs. Rebecca, dear, I've been thinking about our conversation in February. Perhaps I was too hasty in redirecting your loan request to Natasha's trip. Could we discuss reinstating your financing now that your property investment appears more promising? The hypocrisy takes my breath away.
when I needed $900 to secure what I knew was an incredible investment opportunity, they dismissed my research and redirected the family support to fund a vacation. Now that public news confirms what I tried to tell them months ago, suddenly they want to be part of my success. I pull up the folder on my laptop labeled Family Documentation. 6 months of carefully preserved evidence showing exactly how little they thought of my judgment and expertise. Every dismissive comment, every eye roll, every time they changed the subject when I tried to share my research about neighborhood development patterns. The email chain from February tells the full story. When I first requested the loan from grandmother, I included a comprehensive analysis: historical property values, planned infrastructure improvements, demographic trends, and comparable neighborhood transformations in similar cities. 18 pages of research that took me weeks to compile. My father's response was 3 sentences. "Rebecca, sweetheart, this internet research doesn't constitute real investment analysis. We appreciate your enthusiasm, but making major financial decisions requires more than wishful thinking about neighborhood improvements. Let's focus on more practical uses for grandmother's generosity." My mother was more diplomatic, but equally dismissive. "Rebecca, dear, while I admire your optimism about this house, we're concerned about your tendency to see potential where others see problems. Perhaps it would be better to support Natasha's opportunity, which has clearer prospects for success." Natasha's contribution was characteristically blunt. "Seriously, Becca, nobody wants to live in that sketchy neighborhood. You're basically throwing money away on a fantasy. My Bali content will generate actual income through brand partnerships. Your house will just sit there being ugly and worthless." Even grandmother, usually my strongest supporter, chose to trust the family consensus over my detailed research. "Rebecca, while I appreciate your thorough preparation, I believe the family's concerns have merit. Sometimes we become too attached to our ideas to see them clearly. Perhaps this is an opportunity to demonstrate flexibility and family loyalty." Family loyalty. The phrase stings because it perfectly encapsulates their double standard. My loyalty was supposed to mean sacrificing my investment opportunity to fund Natasha's vacation. But their loyalty, apparently, doesn't extend to trusting my judgment or supporting my goals when they conflict with their golden child's desires. The research folder on my desktop contains months of work they never bothered to review. Property records showing the house's original value and architectural significance, city planning documents outlining the development timeline and budget allocations, demographic studies indicating the target market for the cultural district, economic impact projections from similar revitalization projects in comparable cities. Most importantly, the folder contains my consultant contract with Meridian Development Group dated 14 months ago. The same contract that makes me one of the primary architects of the very development project now sending my family into panic mode. They dismissed me as a naive art teacher, playing with real estate fantasies, never bothering to ask about my qualifications or expertise. If they'd shown any genuine interest in my work beyond their superficial judgments, they'd have learned about my urban planning certification, my architectural history background, and my experience analyzing neighborhood development patterns for private consulting clients.
Instead, they chose to see what they expected to see: the impractical daughter who needed guidance from more sophisticated family members, the art teacher who couldn't possibly understand complex investment strategies, the dreamer who confused wishful thinking with market analysis. I opened my banking app to check the balance in my consulting account. The monthly payments from Meridian have been steadily increasing as the project moves from planning to implementation phases. What started as a side income to supplement my teaching salary has grown into a substantial revenue stream that easily exceeds my educational income. The family that worried about my financial stability while I struggled on a teacher's salary has no idea I've been earning more from consulting work than my father makes at his management position at the insurance company. My phone rings again. This time it's my father,
probably calling to demand an explanation for how his financially irresponsible daughter somehow managed to make the smartest investment in recent family history? I let it go to voicemail and instead pull up the news article that has them so rattled. The headline reads, Millbrook's Riverside District poised for major transformation as $50 million development project receives final approval. The article features an interview with James Morrison, the lead developer for Meridian Development Group, discussing the vision for transforming the neglected neighborhood into a vibrant cultural district with mixed-use development, artist studios, boutique retail, and upscale residential options. What the article doesn't mention is that the historical analysis and community development recommendations quoted throughout came from their anonymous consulting expert, the same daughter and sister currently being bombarded with calls from family members who suddenly want to understand her investment strategy. The project timeline outlined in the article shows Phase 1 construction beginning in 6 weeks, with the first residential renovations starting in properties within 2 blocks of my house. The cultural center groundbreaking is scheduled for early fall, and the boutique shopping district will open in phases over the following 18 months. Conservative estimates suggest property values in the district will double within 2 years, and potentially triple within 5 years as the area transitions from forgotten neighborhood to destination cultural district. I bought my house for $900 in a neighborhood they called worthless. According to the development projections I helped create, that same house will be worth approximately $40,000 once the cultural district reaches full development, a return on investment of over 4,000%. But the financial gain, while satisfying, isn't the real victory here. The real victory is the systematic documentation of exactly how wrong they were about my judgment, my capabilities, and my understanding of investment opportunities. My phone buzzes with another message from Natasha. Beck, I'm looking at the property values in your area and I'm literally sick to my stomach. Do you realize how much money that house is going to be worth? I can't believe I talked grandmother into giving me Bali money instead of supporting your investment. Can we please talk about this? The irony is perfect. The sister who called my house a crack house and dismissed my investment as throwing money away on a fantasy is now calculating exactly how much wealth she helped me preserve by refusing to support my purchase. If they'd succeeded in pressuring me to redirect that money to her Bali trip, I would have missed the opportunity entirely. Their dismissal and rejection actually protected my investment from their short-sighted priorities. I close the laptop and walk through my house, now seeing it through the lens of tomorrow morning's revelations. In the restored living room with its original hardwood floors and carefully refinished built-in bookcases, through the updated kitchen where I've maintained the 1920s charm while adding modern functionality, up the staircase to the converted second-floor studio space that will soon overlook the new cultural district. Every room tells the story of what happens when someone trusts their own research and expertise, instead of family opinions based on surface judgments and personal preferences. Tomorrow, I'll finally return some of their calls. Tomorrow, I'll share the full story of how I knew about the development project and why I was so confident in my investment decision. Tomorrow, they'll learn exactly how much it cost them to underestimate the daughter they thought they knew so well. But tonight, I'll sit in my home office surrounded by the evidence of their dismissal and my vindication, planning exactly how to reveal the truth about who their financially irresponsible family member really is. 3 days after the news broke about the Riverside District development, I finally decide to return my family's increasingly desperate phone calls, but not before making some strategic preparations that will ensure this conversation happens entirely on my terms. I'm sitting in the conference room at Meridian Development Group, ostensibly here for our regular monthly consultation meeting about Phase 2 implementation. What James Morrison doesn't realize is that today's meeting will serve a dual purpose. While we review the timeline for the Cultural Center construction and discuss the artist residency program requirements, I'll also be documenting my official role in this project for a very different kind of presentation. Rebecca, your analysis of the historical preservation requirements has been invaluable. The City Council specifically cited your recommendations when they fast-tracked our permits. We'd like to expand your consulting role for the residential development phase.
I scanned the contract terms while calculating the perfect timing for my family revelation. The expanded consulting fee represents a 40% increase over my current monthly payments, bringing my total annual income from this project to more than double my teaching salary, the same project they dismissed as worthless when I tried to explain its potential. I'm definitely interested, I reply, signing the amendment with the same Mont Blanc pen I used to purchase my house. Actually, I have a personal question about the project timeline. When do you expect the first property value assessments to be completed for the residential zone? James checks his project calendar. The county assessor's office scheduled preliminary evaluations for next week. They'll be conducting door-to-door surveys to establish baseline values before construction begins. Why do you ask? Just curious about the impact on current residents, I say casually. I imagine some people who bought properties in the area recently are about to see significant returns on their investments. James chuckles. That's putting it mildly. Anyone who had the foresight to buy in that neighborhood over the past year is about to become very wealthy. It takes real vision to see potential where others see problems. Vision. The word my family never associated with my decision-making process. After our meeting concludes, I drive slowly through the neighborhood, documenting the changes that have accelerated since the project announcement. Construction crews are already installing new streetlights along Riverside Avenue. The abandoned lot at the corner of 3rd and Maple now has a sign announcing future site of Riverside Cultural Center, opening fall 2024. 2 blocks from my house, I count 6 different survey crews marking boundaries for various development phases. My phone rings constantly during the drive. I've counted 47 calls from family members in the past 3 days, each voicemail more desperate than the last. My father's latest message borders on frantic. Rebecca, sweetheart, we really need to discuss your property situation. There are some family financial matters we should review together. Please call back as soon as possible. Family financial matters. After 6 months of exile for my irresponsible spending, suddenly they want to discuss finances. I pull into my driveway and notice something that makes me smile. The house across the street, which sold for $1,200 3 months ago, now has a sold sign with a small notation. Purchased by Riverside Development Partners, $35,000. The same house that 6 months ago couldn't attract buyers at $800 just sold for 43 times its previous market value. Inside my home office, I begin preparing the presentation that will accompany my family reunion. The folder labeled Strategic Documentation contains everything I need to demonstrate exactly how wrong their assumptions were about my expertise and judgment. First, I compile the complete timeline of my involvement with the Riverside District project. The initial consultation contract signed 8 months before I bought my house, the expanded consulting agreement from 6 months ago, the historical analysis reports that influenced the city council approval process, the community development recommendations that shaped the project's cultural programming. Next, I organized the financial documentation showing my consulting income progression. Month by month, the payments have increased as my role in the project expanded. What began as supplemental income has evolved into a substantial revenue stream that transforms my entire financial position.
The property research folder contains my original investment analysis from February, the same 18-page report they dismissed without serious review. Side by side with current market assessments and development projections, it tells the story of expertise ignored and vindicated. But the most important folder contains the communication records from our family's decision-making process. Every email dismissing my research, every text message redirecting support to Natasha's trip, every voicemail explaining why my judgment couldn't be trusted. A comprehensive record of their systematic underestimation. My doorbell rings at exactly 3 o'clock. Through the restored leaded glass, I can see my mother standing on the front porch, her expression a careful mixture of contrition and curiosity. She's wearing her best pearls and the Chanel suit she reserves for important occasions, clearly treating this as a diplomatic mission rather than a casual family visit. "Rebecca, dear, your house looks..." She pauses, taking in the restored exterior, the refinished porch railings, the period-appropriate landscaping I've been installing. "It looks quite different from when you first bought it." "Thank you," I reply, leading her through the front hallway where original hardwood floors gleam under carefully chosen vintage light fixtures. The eyes widen as we move through the living room with its restored built-in bookcases and period furniture. The kitchen renovation maintains 1920s character while incorporating modern appliances seamlessly integrated into the original cabinet design. Upstairs, the converted studio space showcases the architectural potential I tried to explain to them months ago. "Rebecca, this is quite impressive," she admits, settling into my home office where morning light streams through windows that frame a perfect view of the future cultural center site. "I had no idea you were so talented at this kind of renovation work." "There's quite a lot you don't know about my capabilities," I observe, pulling up the project files on my laptop screen. "Would you like some coffee while we discuss the family financial matters Dad mentioned in his voicemail?"
She accepts the coffee served in vintage china I found at estate sales, the same kind of thoughtful, domestic touches she always appreciated in Natasha's carefully curated Instagram posts. "Rebecca, we owe you an apology. When we heard about the development project, we realized we may have been too hasty in our judgment about your house purchase." "Too hasty?" I repeat, clicking through the documentation on my screen. "Let me show you exactly how hasty your judgment was." The first document displays my original investment analysis from February, the 18-page report they declined to review. This is the research I presented when I requested grandmother's loan. Property values, infrastructure plans, demographic trends, comparable neighborhood transformations. Everything you needed to understand why this was an excellent investment opportunity. My mother's face flushes slightly as she recognizes the comprehensive nature of the analysis she helped dismiss. "Rebecca, we should have taken more time to review your research more carefully." "This," I continue, opening the next folder, "is the email chain from our family discussion. Dad's response dismissing my internet research, your concerns about my tendency to see potential where others see problems, Natasha's assessment that nobody wants to live in this sketchy neighborhood." Each document displays their exact words, their systematic dismissal of my expertise and judgment. The evidence is thorough and undeniable, preserved in their own written communications. "And this," I say, opening the consulting contract folder, "is what you didn't know when you were questioning my financial decision-making abilities." The Meridian Development Group consulting agreement fills the screen, showing my role as historical preservation specialist and community development consultant for the Riverside District project. The monthly payment schedule demonstrates income that exceeds my teaching salary by substantial margins. My mother's coffee cup rattles against its saucer as she absorbs the implications. You've been working on this development project? For how long?" 18 months, I reply, scrolling through the payment history. "I was hired to analyze the historical significance and cultural potential of this neighborhood
8 months before I bought my house. Everything I tried to explain to you about the area's transformation potential came from my direct involvement in planning that transformation. The silence stretches while she processes this revelation. Her daughter, the financially irresponsible art teacher, has been a key consultant on the project that validates every investment decision they criticized. Rebecca, why didn't you tell us about this consulting work? When? I ask, genuinely curious about her answer. During the family dinner where you decided I was too naive to understand real estate investments? During the phone call where Dad explained that my education background didn't qualify me for financial decision-making? During the meeting where Grandmother chose to fund Natasha's vacation instead of trusting my market analysis? She shifts uncomfortably in her chair, recognizing the pattern of dismissal I'm describing. We thought we were protecting you from making a mistake. You thought you knew better than I did about my area of expertise. You assumed that because I teach art and live modestly, I couldn't possibly understand complex investment strategies or neighborhood development patterns. My phone chimes with a text message notification. The screen shows a message from the county assessor's office. Preliminary property evaluation scheduled for 47 Riverside Avenue tomorrow at 10 a.m. Please be available for assessment interview. That's the county assessor, I explain, showing her the message. They're conducting property evaluations throughout the neighborhood to establish new baseline values before construction begins. Based on the development timeline and comparable sales data, this house should appraise for approximately $40,000. The mathematics hit her immediately. A $900 investment becoming a $40,000 asset represents a return that validates every aspect of my original analysis. Rebecca, we made a serious error in judgment. Yes, you did. But the error was not just about the house. The error was about your assessment of my capabilities, my judgment, and my expertise. You chose to see me as someone who needed guidance rather than someone who had already done the research and analysis. My phone chimes with a text message notification. The screen shows a message from the county assessor's office. Preliminary property evaluation scheduled for 47 Riverside Avenue tomorrow at 10 a.m. Please be available for assessment interview. That's the county assessor, I explain, showing her the message. They're conducting property evaluations throughout the neighborhood to establish new baseline values before construction begins. Based on the development timeline and comparable sales data, this house should appraise for approximately $40,000. The mathematics hit her immediately. A $900 investment becoming a $40,000 asset represents a return that validates every aspect of my original analysis. Rebecca, we made a serious error in judgment. Yes, you did. But the error was not just about the house. The error was about your assessment of my capabilities, my judgment, and my expertise. You chose to see me as someone who needed guidance rather than someone who had already done the research and analysis. My phone chimes again, more insistently this time. Through the windows, I can see my father's car in the driveway, followed by my grandmother's sedan and Natasha's convertible. The entire family has arrived for what they clearly planned as a coordinated approach to managing their realization about my investment success. It looks like everyone wanted to discuss family financial matters today, I observe, saving my presentation files and preparing for the conversation that will finally reveal the full extent of their misjudgment. Rebecca, my mother says urgently, before they come in, I want you to know that we're proud of what you've accomplished here. We just wish we had understood sooner. I look at her sitting in my restored home office, surrounded by evidence of the expertise she dismissed and the success she tried to redirect. The understanding was always available. You just had to trust me enough to listen. The front door chimes again, more insistently this time. Through the windows, I can see my father, grandmother, and sister gathered on the porch, probably comparing notes on their strategy for this family reconciliation meeting. But this won't be a reconciliation meeting. This will be a presentation about consequences, about the cost of underestimating someone based on assumptions rather than evidence. I close my laptop and walk toward the front door. ready to welcome my family into the home they thought would ruin my future, the same home that's about to demonstrate exactly how wrong their assumptions were about their supposedly naive, financially irresponsible daughter. I opened the front door to find my entire family arranged on my porch like a delegation arriving for peace negotiations. My father stands at the center, wearing his most diplomatic expression, the one he reserves for difficult conversations at work. Grandmother clutches her designer handbag with both hands, her usual confidence replaced by uncertain curiosity. Natasha hovers behind them, her phone already out and recording what she probably expects to be an emotional family reunion for her social media audience. "Rebecca, sweetheart," my father begins, his voice carrying that carefully modulated tone he uses when he wants to appear reasonable while maintaining control. "We thought it would be better if we all came together to discuss this situation as a family." "This situation," I repeat, stepping aside to let them enter. "You mean my financial irresponsibility and poor judgment?" The restored entryway stops them cold. Original hardwood floors gleam under period-appropriate lighting fixtures. Built-in cabinetry displays carefully chosen vintage pottery and art pieces. The staircase banister, which I spent weeks refinishing by hand, curves gracefully toward the second floor, where afternoon light streams through stained glass windows. Natasha lowers her phone, her influencer instincts recognizing aesthetic quality when she sees it. "Becca, this place is it's actually really beautiful. When did you do all this work?" "Evenings and weekends," I reply, leading them into the living room where floor-to-ceiling bookcases frame a working fireplace with original tile surround. "I've been learning restoration techniques and period-appropriate design principles." My father's insurance executive mind immediately begins calculating renovation costs. "Rebecca, this kind of professional restoration work must have been extremely expensive. How did you afford all these improvements on a teacher's salary?" I settle into my favorite reading chair, watching them take in the transformed space that contradicts every assumption they made about my house purchase. "Actually, Dad, that's exactly what we need to discuss. Please, sit down." They arranged themselves on the restored Victorian sofa I found at an estate sale and reupholstered myself, their expressions mixing admiration with growing confusion. The daughter they dismissed as financially naive has clearly accomplished something far beyond their expectations. "Before we begin," I say, pulling up the presentation files on my laptop, "I want to establish some ground rules. Today's conversation will be entirely factual. No emotional manipulation, no family guilt tactics, no attempts to rewrite history. Just documented evidence and verifiable information." Grandmother adjusts her pearls nervously. "Rebecca, dear, we didn't come here to argue. We came to understand what happened and how we can move forward as a family." "How we can move forward," I repeat, connecting my laptop to the large monitor I installed for my consulting work. "Let's start by reviewing exactly where we've been." The first document appears on screen, my original 18-page investment analysis from February. This is the research I presented when I requested the $900 loan: comprehensive market analysis, infrastructure development timelines, comparable neighborhood transformations, architectural assessments, demographic projections. My father shifts uncomfortably as he recognizes the thoroughness of the analysis he dismissed without reading. "Rebecca, we should have reviewed this more carefully. You should have reviewed it at all," I correct, advancing to the next slide. "And here's your actual response." His email appears on screen, the words he wrote in dismissal of my expertise. "Rebecca, sweetheart, this internet research doesn't constitute real investment analysis. We appreciate your enthusiasm, but making major financial decisions requires more than wishful thinking about neighborhood improvements." The room falls silent as they confront the documented evidence of their assumptions. Natasha squirms on the sofa, probably remembering her own contributions to the dismissal. This is Mom's response, I continue, displaying the next email. Her concerns about my tendency to see potential where others see problems, and her recommendation to support Natasha's clearer prospects for success. My mother's face flushes as she reads her own words. Rebecca, I was trying to be protective. I didn't want you to be disappointed if the investment didn't work out. And this, I say, advancing to Natasha's text messages, is your assessment of my decision-making capabilities. Her words appear on screen in all their dismissive glory. Seriously, Becca? Nobody wants to live in that sketchy neighborhood. You're basically throwing money away on a fantasy. My Bali content will generate actual income through brand partnerships. Your house will just sit there being ugly and worthless. Natasha's confident expression crumbles as she confronts her own documented judgment. Becca, I was stressed about the Bali opportunity. I didn't mean to be so harsh. You meant every word because you genuinely believed I was incapable of making intelligent investment decisions. All of you did. I clicked to the next section of my presentation. Now let me show you what you didn't know when you were questioning my financial judgment. The Meridian Development Group consulting contract fills the screen, showing my official title as Historical Preservation Specialist and Community Development Consultant. The monthly payment schedule demonstrates income progression from supplemental to substantial. My father's mouth opens and closes wordlessly as he processes the implications. His daughter, the supposedly naive art teacher, has been earning more from consulting work than he makes in his management position. You've been working on the development project? Grandmother asks, her voice barely a whisper. For how long?
18 months, I reply, scrolling through payment records and project timelines. I was hired to analyze the historical significance and cultural development potential of this neighborhood 8 months before I bought my house. Every recommendation I made to you about this investment came from my direct involvement in planning the transformation. The revelation hits them with devastating precision. Their financially irresponsible daughter has been one of the key architects of the project they now realize will make her wealthy. But why didn't you tell us? My mother asks desperately. Why did you let us think you were making a poor decision? I lean back in my chair, studying their faces as they grapple with the complete reversal of their assumptions. When exactly should I have told you? During the family dinner where you explained that my education background didn't qualify me for complex financial decisions? During the phone call where Dad dismissed my research as wishful thinking? During the meeting where Grandmother chose to fund a vacation instead of trusting my professional analysis? Each question lands like a physical blow as they recognize their systematic dismissal of my expertise. The daughter they thought needed guidance had been the expert all along. This morning, I continue opening another file, I received confirmation from the county assessor's office. They'll be conducting property evaluations throughout the neighborhood to establish new baseline values before construction begins. The assessment notification appears on screen, showing my address and appointment time. Based on current market trends and development projections, this house should appraise for approximately $40,000. The mathematics are undeniable. A $900 investment becoming a $40,000 asset represents vindication of every decision they criticized and every analysis they ignored. Natasha breaks the silence first, her voice cracking with emotion. Becca, I am so sorry. I called your house worthless. I said you were throwing money away on a fantasy. I talked Grandmother into giving me the Bali money instead of supporting your investment. I was completely wrong about everything. Yes, you were. I agree, without softening the acknowledgement. But your wrongness wasn't just about the house. You were wrong about my judgment, my capabilities, and my expertise. All of you were. My father attempts damage control. Rebecca, sweetheart, we made mistakes, but we were trying to look out for your best interests. We thought... You thought you knew better than I did about my own area of professional expertise. You assumed that because I teach art and live modestly, I couldn't possibly understand complex financial strategies or neighborhood development patterns. I click to the final section of my presentation, a comprehensive timeline showing the overlap between my consulting work and their family discussions. Every family gathering where you questioned my judgment, I had just completed another phase of analysis for the development project. Every time you redirected support to Natasha's ventures, I was earning consulting fees that exceeded my teaching income. Every moment you treated me as someone who needed financial guidance, I was providing that guidance to the developers transforming this neighborhood. The timeline visualization makes their misjudgment impossible to deny or minimize. They systematically underestimated someone who was succeeding beyond their comprehension. Grandmother finally speaks, her voice carrying the weight of her 86 years and her recognition of a profound error in judgment. Rebecca, I have made many decisions in my long life, but redirecting your loan request to fund Natasha's vacation may be among the worst. I chose immediate gratification over long-term investment, and I chose family politics over professional expertise. You chose what you always choose. You chose Natasha's desires over my analysis, her wants over my expertise, her immediate satisfaction over my long-term planning. The accusation hangs in the air because its accuracy makes denial impossible. 3 generations of women in this family, and they consistently supported the one who demanded rather than the one who delivered. My phone chimes with a text message. I glance at the screen and smile for the first time during this conversation. That's James Morrison from Meridian Development Group. He wants to schedule a meeting about expanding my consulting role for Phase 3 of the project. The compensation increase would bring my annual consulting income to more than double my teaching salary. I show them the message, letting them absorb the implications of continued success they never saw coming. The daughter you thought was financially irresponsible just received another promotion in her secondary career that you never bothered to learn about. Natasha wipes tears from her carefully applied makeup. Becca, what can we do to fix this? How can we make up for treating you so badly? I close my laptop and look around at my family. These people who shared my DNA but never bothered to understand my capabilities. You can start by acknowledging that you don't actually know me as well as you assumed. You can recognize that your assessment of my judgment and expertise was completely wrong, and you can accept that the consequences of that misjudgment are permanent. Permanent? My mother asks, fear creeping into her voice. The exile you imposed for my financial irresponsibility is permanent. The dismissal of my expertise is documented and unforgivable. The systematic preference for Natasha's wants over my needs is a pattern that won't change because one investment succeeded.
I stand up, walking to the window that frames a perfect view of the future cultural center construction site. You didn't just make one mistake about a house purchase. You revealed your fundamental assessment of my worth, my intelligence, and my capabilities. That revelation can't be taken back. The family that cast me out for choosing investment over vacation is now sitting in the investment they tried to prevent, surrounded by evidence of expertise they never acknowledged, confronting the full cost of assumptions they never questioned. Tomorrow, the county assessor will confirm what I already know about this property's value. Next week, the construction crews will begin work on infrastructure improvements that will transform this neighborhood into Millbrook's most desirable address. Next month, I'll sign the expanded consulting contract that makes me financially independent of any family support or approval. But today, they finally understand exactly what they lost when they chose to underestimate the daughter who knew more than they did about everything that mattered. 6 months after my family's confrontation in my living room, I stand at the second-floor window of my now fully restored home, watching the grand opening celebration of the Riverside Cultural Center taking place 3 blocks away. The morning sun illuminates a transformed neighborhood where artists, families, and young professionals stroll between boutique shops and sidewalk cafes that replaced the vacant lots and abandoned storefronts my family once called worthless.
My phone displays a notification from my banking app showing this month's consulting payment from Meridian Development Group. $8,347, bringing my total earnings from the project to over $125,000 since I first signed the contract 24 months ago. The same expertise my family dismissed as internet research has generated more income than 3 years of my teaching salary combined. The county assessor's final report sits framed on my desk, documenting my house's current appraised value at $432,200. The $900 investment they tried to redirect to Natasha's vacation has appreciated by 4,700% in 18 months, making it one of the most successful real estate investments in Millbrook's recorded history. Through my restored leaded glass windows, I can see the line of visitors waiting to tour the cultural center's opening exhibition, From Forgotten to Flourishing, the Riverside District Transformation. The display includes before and after photographs of the neighborhood, historical documentation of the area's architectural significance, and detailed explanations of the planning process that made the revival possible. What the exhibition doesn't mention is that many of the historical analysis reports quoted throughout came from their anonymous consulting expert, the same woman now watching the celebration from her kitchen table while reviewing applications for the artist residency program that will bring 20 creative professionals to live and work in the district over the next 2 years. My phone chimes at exactly 10 o'clock. I'm not expecting anyone, but through the front window, I can see a familiar figure standing on my porch with what appears to be a carefully arranged gift basket and an expression of determined contrition. Natasha has clearly coordinated her visit with the cultural center opening, probably hoping the celebratory atmosphere will make her more receptive to whatever reconciliation attempt she's planned. She's wearing her most flattering outfit. Her phone is already positioned for optimal lighting, and she's practicing the expression that usually accompanies her most successful apology content. "Becca, you look amazing," she begins the moment I open the door, her influencer instincts automatically assessing my appearance for social media potential. "This whole neighborhood transformation is just incredible. You must feel so vindicated about your investment decision." Vindicated, as if my expertise required external validation rather than being objectively correct from the beginning. "What can I do for you, Natasha?" I ask, not inviting her inside despite the autumn chill and her obvious expectation of hospitality. She shifts the gift basket to one arm and pulls out her phone with practiced efficiency. "I was hoping we could talk about healing our relationship. I've been doing a lot of personal growth work with my therapist, and I realize I need to make amends for how I treated you during the whole family situation last year." Personal growth work. The therapeutic language that influencers use when they need content about overcoming challenges and becoming better people for their audience's inspirational consumption. "I brought you some artisanal coffee and locally sourced honey," she continues, extending the basket toward me. "I thought we could sit down and discuss how to move forward as sisters. I've learned so much about family dynamics and financial literacy since everything happened." Financial literacy. The woman who called my house a worthless crack house and convinced our grandmother to fund her vacation instead of my investment now wants to discuss her educational progress in understanding money management. "Natasha, I appreciate the gesture, but I'm not interested in healing our relationship or moving forward as sisters. The situation between us was resolved 6 months ago when you learned about the consequences of your choices." Her carefully practiced expression falters slightly. "Becca, I know I made mistakes, but I was young and stressed about my career. I didn't understand the real estate market or development projects. Can't you forgive me for not knowing things I'd never learned about?" You weren't forgiven for not knowing about real estate. You were held accountable for dismissing my expertise, pressuring family members to redirect support away from my investment, and treating me like someone whose judgment couldn't be trusted. I pull up the screenshot I've saved on my phone, showing her exact words from our February family discussion.
Seriously, Becca, nobody wants to live in that sketchy neighborhood. You're basically throwing money away on a fantasy. These weren't the words of someone who lacked real estate knowledge, I continue. These were the words of someone who assumed she knew better than I did about my own area of professional expertise. Natasha's phone remains ready in her hand, probably hoping this conversation will become content she can use for a redemption narrative about learning from mistakes and rebuilding family relationships. But I've changed since then, she insists. I've been taking online courses about investment strategies and property development. I've been following real estate influencers and learning about market analysis. I want to understand what you understood. You want to understand now because the results proved me right, I observe. If this house had remained at $900 in value, would you be here with artisanal coffee and personal growth insights about financial literacy? She doesn't answer immediately, which provides the answer itself. Her interest in learning about my expertise directly correlates with the public validation of my success. My phone buzzes with a text message from James Morrison. Rebecca, the Phase 3 expansion has been approved by the City Council. We'll need your analysis of the Historical District extension for the next development zone. Can we schedule a meeting this week to discuss the expanded consulting contract? I show Natasha the message, watching her face as she processes another reminder of the expertise she dismissed and the ongoing success she tried to prevent. "You're still working with the development company?" she asks, her voice carrying a mixture of admiration and something that might be envy. "I'm the lead historical consultant for the entire Riverside District project. My analysis and recommendations have shaped every phase of the development. The cultural programming, the architectural preservation requirements, the artist residency program, the community engagement initiatives, they all came from research and planning I've been conducting for over 2 years." The revelation hits her exactly as I intended. Her sister, the financially irresponsible art teacher she dismissed as naive, has been one of the primary architects of the project now being celebrated as Millbrook's most successful urban renewal initiative. "Becca, I had no idea your role was so significant. You're basically famous in the development world. People are calling this transformation a model for other cities." "People are calling my work a model for other cities," I correct. "The same work you convinced our family to ignore when I tried to explain my investment rationale." A group of cultural center visitors walks past my front gate, their conversation audible through the autumn air. "This whole area is just magical now. I can't believe anyone could have seen the potential when it looked so run down before." Natasha follows my gaze toward the visitors, then back to my restored house with its period-appropriate landscaping and carefully maintained historical details. "You saw the potential when nobody else did." "I saw the potential when nobody in our family would listen," I clarify. "Other people saw it too. The developers who hired me, the city planners who approved the project, the investors who bought properties throughout the neighborhood. Our family was uniquely dismissive of information that was available to anyone who cared to research it." She shifts uncomfortably, probably recognizing that her attempt at reconciliation isn't proceeding according to her planned script. "What would it take for you to consider rebuilding our relationship?" I consider her question while watching another group of visitors admire the architectural details of houses they would have called worthless 18 months ago. "It would take acknowledgement that your assessment of my judgment was fundamentally wrong. Recognition that your influence on family financial decisions caused lasting harm. Acceptance that your dismissal of my expertise reflected your assumptions of my capabilities rather than objective analysis of my qualifications." "I can acknowledge all of that," she says quickly, her influencer training making her comfortable with public admissions of growth and learning. "And it would take genuine change in how you treat family members whose expertise differs from your expectations. Demonstrated respect for knowledge you don't personally possess, evidence that you can support someone else's success without needing to benefit from it yourself." Her expression shifts as she realizes I'm describing behavioral changes that would require fundamental alterations to her personality and approach to family relationships. "Becca, those are really high standards for family forgiveness." "Those are basic standards for respectful relationships," I reply. "The same standards I would apply to anyone who systematically dismissed my expertise and actively worked to prevent my success." My phone chimes again with another notification.
This time, it's an email from Millbrook Community College where I submitted an application to teach urban planning and community development courses as an adjunct instructor. The message confirms my acceptance and outlines the curriculum development opportunities available for someone with my consulting experience. Another professional opportunity created by the expertise my family spent months dismissing as worthless fantasies. I have work to do today, I tell Natasha, stepping back toward my front door. The same work I've been doing for 2 years while you were learning about financial literacy from social media influencers. She remains on my porch holding her gift basket, probably calculating whether this conversation can still be converted into content about family healing journeys and personal growth milestones.
Becca, what about mom and dad? What about grandmother? They're all hoping for some kind of family reunion, especially with the holidays coming up. They're welcome to continue hoping, I reply. Hope doesn't require my participation. As I close the door, I can see Natasha through the glass, still standing on my porch with her artisanal coffee and carefully prepared apology, probably trying to decide whether failed reconciliation attempts can become content about respecting boundaries and accepting consequences. From my home office window, I watch her walk back toward her car, passing the survey crews marking boundaries for Phase 3 development and the architectural preservation team documenting historical features for the district expansion I'll be consulting on next week. The family that cast me out for choosing investment over vacation is now desperately seeking reconciliation with the daughter whose success they tried to prevent. The same people who questioned my financial responsibility are now hoping to benefit from the expertise they systematically dismissed. But some lessons come too late to change the past, and some consequences are too permanent to be resolved with artisanal coffee and personal growth insights. My phone shows a final notification for the morning, a message from my investment advisor confirming that my consulting income has reached the level where I can begin diversifying into additional property investments throughout the region. The woman they thought was financially irresponsible just became qualified for investment opportunities that exceed anything in their family's financial history. I settle into my home office chair, surrounded by evidence of expertise acknowledged and success achieved, preparing to review applications for the next phase of the project that transformed both my neighborhood and my life. The view from my window shows a thriving cultural district where artists, families, and entrepreneurs have built the community I helped envision 2 years ago. Somewhere across town, my family continues dealing with the consequences of assumptions they can never take back and expertise they waited too long to acknowledge. Some stories end with reconciliation and family healing. Others end with justice served and boundaries maintained. Mine ends with the quiet satisfaction of being proven right by every measure that actually matters. Next up, 2 more stories chosen just for you. If you enjoyed this, you'll want to see what's coming. Tap to keep going.